Well, awesome. I appreciate everybody that's joining us today. It's Thursday. It's coming up to Good Friday and Easter weekend. And we are just incredibly excited to be in these community meetups because we do these to provide context and conversation. They're candid. They happen in the moments, right? Business is always on the move. We're ebbing and flowing. And today we've got Alecia Huck with Maverick and Company, and she's coming from us mobile, right? Because that happens in business. We've got to make things work. And we are just so appreciative that she's here today to provide some conversation on what she's got going on. And we want to invite people and the community members to listen in and join us. If your camera's on, if your camera's off, if you want to chat, if you want to just listen, we're open-ended. We just want to be part of your life and be committed to your journey. So to everybody that's here and to those that are listening afterwards, thank you so much for being part of the community and contributing. And Alecia, before you get started, we're going to have everybody that's here introduce themselves so that you know who is here to support you and committed to you. My name's Adam Griggs. I'm your moderator today. I have a company called Clarify, and I'm very, very excited to be connected to Alecia. She is a powerhouse, and I know she's got a lot to share with us today. And you know what? I'm gonna change it over to Patty because Patty's actually the one who connected us.
Oh, thank you, Adam. As Alecia likes to say, it's fun to be around amazing human beings, right? So for those that don't know me, my name is Patty Farmer. I'm a marketing and media strategist and speaker, and I'm really all about helping you to make your marketing profitable, not painful. And I'm excited to be here because Alecia's gonna rock it today.
The pressure's on. Patty, thank you so much for being part of the community and connecting us, right? This wouldn't be possible without people like you. I want to turn it over to Rachel over at GoDaddy.
Good morning. Good afternoon if you're like on the East Coast. Alecia, really excited to have you here and excited to get to know you and hear your story. I'm from GoDaddy. I run community experiences and co-manage with Jonathan, the LinkedIn group. And gosh, the group is all about connections. So this is a great example of Patty introducing Adam to Alecia. This is what the group is for, about learning, growing, hearing stories. So super excited.
Thanks, Rachel. Appreciate you. Elena, do you want to introduce yourself and then Tina?
Yeah. Hi. Nice to meet you. I work with Rachel over at GoDaddy. I am on her team, working on community engagement and virtual events. I'm pretty new. This is only me and Tina's second week, but this is also our second meetup. So we are excited to meet you and hear what you have to say.
Awesome. I want to be one of the two best that you've seen.
You absolutely will be.
So far, you're in.
Hi, I'm Tina. I'm also on Rachel's team doing community events and reporting. And I'm just, second time joining one of these meetings. And I'm excited to hear a little bit about your story.
Awesome, Tina. Thanks so much. And Jonathan, I see you're here.
Hello. Hi. I apologize for being cameras off again. It is a staggeringly busier day than I anticipated, but I am so grateful to be here. We've been doing these for so long, and we have done many in cars. We've done them in different countries where literally we are international in more ways than one. So any way that you can be with us today, we're grateful. So thank you so much. I'm excited to hear from you.
Jonathan,
I am here the whole time.
Oh, that's good. And Jonathan, even though Alecia's not seeing you, I've told Alecia all about you, and she knows all about, Bones Day or No Bones Day. And
I'm in love with your dog.
Oh my God.
When she was telling me the story, I kind of lost my mind. I fangirled out because I've watched that video so many times.
He's up on the back of the couch as we speak.
Well, Alecia has a dog, Pete Mitchell, and every time we get on a call, it's all about Pete Mitchell. Say hi to Patty, right? So
Pete, oh my God, Pete Mitchell, what a fabulous name. Noodle came with the name when I got him, and I was like, there's no messing with greatness.
Well, Rachel's dog might start barking. If he does, we need an introduction.
Oh
right?
my God, Angus and Mac, bring him on,
stuff.
Man, bring him on.
They're literally sitting right here, so I'll bring them on. I'll do quick cameo appearances.
Listen, the pandemic was bad, but let's be honest. Now that we can see each other's dogs, I feel like the world is a better place.
Right.
It wasn't all bad. There were silver linings. There were silver linings to be found.
Yeah, everybody got to know each other so much more, and I love it because our lives are so much more than we really know. And Alecia, thanks so much for being here, and to the GoDaddy team that's here too. You know, and the community members like you, Patty. Having connection and trust are important, but only if we can protect that and embrace it, right? And that's why we have these conversations. So obviously we're getting to know each other, and we're loving conversations around animals and everything else. And we really want to talk life amongst the business, because business has to be balanced. It's all about lifestyle. It's all about living your best life, enjoying it, and living up to your expectations, right? Making sure that you're not letting yourself down and not overwhelming yourself. So we always have these guests on, and Alecia is a fireball in that department, right? That is what you are all about. Alecia, you help people to balance and find that lifestyle and that business world where everything meets and exceeds and thrives together. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where do you come from? What drove you to create Maverick and Company? And we can go from there if you're all right.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, Adam. It's really fun for me today to be on because I loved meeting Adam. I loved hearing about your business. I'm all about those kinds of tools. And I've been a GoDaddy customer for a million years. And every time I have a new idea, I go on GoDaddy and I try to find the domain name. So I have, I think, a couple dozen of them now. But I mean, when I started my business in 2004, we just didn't have those kinds of tools. I mean, you had to, if you wanted a website, you had to hire somebody, pay a whole lot of money, which I didn't have at the time. And so it's, you know, I love the personal aspect of the network, and then being connected to people who are in companies that you've been a fan of for a really long time. Like, it is kind of a fangirl. You're like, oh, now I know people at GoDaddy personally. How cool is that? So I'm super excited to join you guys. I'm also a big fan of Patty Farmer. She's been incredible. And, you know, I think we all know how awesome she is in championing people. But, you know, I'm a small town South Dakota girl. And when I was in college, I had this crazy summer job. I started out, I thought I was going to law school. That was my big dream. I watched LA Law as a kid, and I was like, I want to be one of those people. I want to pound on desks and yell and stuff and look, you know, important in a suit. And then I got to college and realized that I really found law kind of like, you know, section 492 of the legal code sort of boring. There wasn't a lot of pounding in the classes I was seeing. And I got recruited to do this crazy summer job where I was a door-to-door salesman selling educational books out in the world, 80 plus hours a week, straight commission. And that was my very first real grown-up job as a 19-year-old freshman in college. And so I did that. I ended up doing that for 5 summers. And it is, man, it's like the fruit flies of the business world. Because when you try something during the week, you just get so many iterations, right? So I have done 30,000 cold calls before I was 30 years old, which is a little bit ridiculous, right? Like that's a form of torture in many companies and outlawed by many peace treaties. But it was amazing because it really does teach you how to manage that internal voice in your head. And I'm sure many of the people, I mean, it was funny. I was, you know, running around and there were people around me trying to help me make it out the door and, you know, get into my glamorous mobile office. And they were like, is that going to be okay? I'm like, I got to be on camera. And they're like, is that going to be okay? And I was like, well, this is for entrepreneurs and small business owners. So if it's not okay here, it's never going to be okay anywhere. So I, you know, adapt and overcome isn't just a thing that we tell Marines, right? But in those years when I was selling books door to door, and then I did that for 1 summer, and then they invited me back as a manager. And then I was teaching other 19-year-olds the glories of selling books door to door and working 80 plus hours a week in the hot summer sun. You really do learn a lot of adapt and overcome. We used to call it the problem solving formula. And I think for me, that's one of the things I find. I mean, there's a lot to love about being an entrepreneur and working with business owners, but part of it is the connections that you make and just that feeling of overcoming, right? And finding a way. And like, you bang your head against that problem so many times for so long, and then you finally find the way out. And for me now as a consultant, it's really fun because sometimes I'm the one who can say, hey, there's a door over there to the left. Do you want to just use that? So I sold books in college and got all this amazing, incredible experience and worked with some incredible leaders who really really invested in me and helped me take some of the rough edges off, right? Like, I'm sure all of you guys were amazing at 20 years old, but I definitely wasn't. I was a pretty intense person and didn't really understand that management wasn't just getting the job done. It was also managing the environment that people worked in and really helping them win. So it wasn't just the tasks. And, you know, I did a lot of damage. I helped burn down a whole sales organization one year because I just didn't understand how to manage people. I didn't know that yelling wasn't the thing, right? I was just so focused on the tasks. So I was really lucky because I had bosses that were willing to pause and help me figure out a better way and invest in me and help me do some course corrections. And, you know, that program is designed to help develop people, but I kind of think of it like this. We all think of personal development as this beautiful thing, right? You always, all the sales brochures are always yoga on the beach at sunset and everybody's in white linen. But the actual experience of growth is usually a lot more like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon where there's a frying pan to the face and you're like, oh God, I didn't realize I was that far off track, right? So, you know, they invested in me. And after I graduated college, I have an English and political science degree. So I never stepped foot in the business school except to run interviews to recruit salespeople to my program. And then I did a little stint in corporate America, which some of you will identify with this. I just really wasn't a good fit for. Like, I am what we call in the Midwest ornery. Like a little too independent, little too stubborn, and it just didn't mesh well, right? The very first day, the nice HR woman at this big, huge corporation was explaining the huge policies, and she said, you know, you get 7 days off a year or something like that. And I said, well, but I'm in sales, right? So as long as I hit my numbers, nobody actually cares what I do. And she said, you get 7 days off a year. Like, she actually looked a little scared. And I thought, this might not be an ideal environment for someone like me. So kind of washed out of corporate America. And then I had seen somebody else lead a goal setting workshop. And I thought, well, that's something I know how to do. And I heard she was a consultant. And so I started asking around, like, what's a consultant do? And what you mean, you read books and you go around and you tell people what to do with their business and you be your own boss and make a lot of money? That sounds really good. What if I did that? So really pretty arrogant, because again, I still had some rough edges at 25, 26, 27. Jumped off the deep end, didn't have any savings, didn't have any connections, never been to a networking meeting, didn't know how this kind of a process was supposed to work, and just went for it. And that led to a lot of years of being poor, just to be really straight about the whole thing. But it, you know, I was good at what I did, but I didn't understand the marketing aspect, right? I didn't have a Patty farmer in my life to help me figure out where I should be spending my time to get my name out there. And so it took a long time, but now I've been in business, I think it's about 17 years. And I really found that my niche is specifically working with the leadership teams of fast growing companies. And so a lot of them are owner, you know, the CEO is somebody who owns it, maybe a second, third, fourth generation, maybe a first generation, people that have just worked really hard and it got really big. And then for a lot of us, the wheels start to come off a little bit, right? And I know for some people, the wheels come off and you're the only one in the car. And for some people, it's you and a train full of people behind you. And then you have all those people to worry about, right? Those mortgages and those folks with their needs. So I do love the conversation about balance, but I have to be honest, I'm really about, let's just make your business work and then you go decide what to do with your life. Like, let's just have this thing that you started to serve your life that has now started taking over your life. Let's just make that work in a really good way. Because for me, and you know, the name of my company is Maverick and Company. I work with rebels and people who are kind of ornery like I am. And they believe there's something special about the business that they're building and the way that they're building it, the way they provide the services they provide. So we want to protect that, right? You don't have to be like everybody else. We want to protect this thing that you're doing. And for a lot of them, it really is a mission. It's a thing that it's deeply personal for them. And so, you know, I want to give them a fighting chance at how you can win, and you can win by still being yourself. You don't have to become somebody you're not.
I love that. You know what? Your story is awesome because you've really just run through the evolution of what brought you to where you are. And one of the things that I just love that you said, and by the way, 17 is my favorite number. So happy work anniversary. Congrats. This is all lining up for us. One of the amazing
Tina.
things is when people think that they're going to jump into entrepreneurship, right? They think that there's going to be this catalyst, this moment, and usually there is. And sometimes we get shoved, sometimes we make the choice, but we ditch this Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 for 24/7, 365. And we find that we are very much alone, right? And I want to point out what you said there, and there's a little bit of vulnerability that you shared with us already, is the fact that you did struggle. It was trial by fire. You did have to go through experiences and tribulation, and you had to find out what did and didn't work. And then you figured out that there were mentors investing in you. And so we posted about leadership in Atlas Center, where we all think we got to carry the weight of the world on our backs, do everything ourselves. If people don't meet our expectations, do it anyways, do it without them. Well, sometimes in a business, you have to, right? You got to take the reins, you got to make things happen. But it's not just about the people that are in your core business. It's about those around you, right? Opening up your perspective and your awareness to people like you, Alecia, to Patty, to the GoDaddy team, right? Who is around you to give you a little bit of perspective that allows you to evolve and move forward, so that it's not always trial by fire. Investment mentorship is an investment in you skipping those steps. We can all do a lot less falling down and a lot more picking up the pace. And I appreciate you for that. And I think that's one of the greatest tools that we have as a community, is to provide that perspective, that awareness. So I appreciate you for that.
Well, thank you. That's incredibly sweet. And just because I know there are people who are in this boat, right? I ran into a friend of mine. I'd probably been in business between 5 and 7 years, and there were just ups and downs. And I ran into a friend of mine who worked at a major corporation in the grocery store one Tuesday morning. And he said, well, what are you up to? And I said, well, I kind of finished everything I need to do. I'm going to take the rest of the day and maybe do some reading, take the dog for a walk. And he's like, you entrepreneur. He's like, you guys are so lucky. You don't ever have to do what you don't want. Like, you work, and I have to go to work today, and I work for 12 hours and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't tell him this at the time. So Alan, if you happen to see this was what was really happening. I had gone to the grocery store that morning because I had a giant jar of change, and I needed to turn it into cash so I could buy groceries. Like, if you run a business, right? And I don't run an overhead intensive business. I work with people who do, right? We all have stories about credit card bills to make payroll, and the money that moment when you have to swallow your pride and ask a friend or a relative to help float you, to get you across some hump. And it's maybe a vision of something that you're the only one that can see it. Like, that'll dull your sharp edges in a heartbeat, right? Which I think can be a really beautiful, great thing. It's part of what I love about this kind of work. It's a great scoreboard. It's going to force you to grow and expand as a human being. But Adam, you're exactly right. There are so many great resources out there, right? You do not have to do it alone. I think sometimes we don't realize what the great resources are. We are sort of, it's a pride thing. Like, we don't want to admit that we don't know how to do everything. I also think that for a lot of us, we fall into this super doer habit, right? Like, you in life, as you go through school, you get praised, you get promoted, you get paid on what you can do. And then it is a real mental backflip to shift to, I'm not getting paid for what I do anymore. I'm getting paid to develop people who are going to do the doing, to lead people, right? And it's really hard to understand, well, what should I delegate? What should I not? And sometimes we make this mistake where we delegate tasks, but not responsibilities. And then all of a sudden you look around, and what you have is a team of very highly paid minions who mostly make more work for you. And so I just think it's a really tricky thing. But for sure, if you're willing to reach out, there is something really reassuring to know that you're not the only one who feels that way, and you're not the only one who's made that mistake or gone down that path.
Yeah, there's an awareness out there that everybody's got this expectation. You're gonna walk into a restaurant or a grocery store, and you're gonna see somebody that is driving a ridiculously nice car, just like in the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. And it's like, hey, I don't care what you're doing. I want to quit my job and work for you right now. Or the converse of that is nobody shares their moments, their stories, their obstacles they overcome until they finally made it, right? Until they feel they've made this level of respect and accolades. And now I can share with you 15 years ago, the trial by fire that I got. When we should be having conversations now, right? I'm not saying go out there and say, oh yeah, I am changing in cash to float my business today or change. But we should be having more of these conversations, more getting to know each other, getting to know the process, getting to know the struggles, and allowing ourselves awareness, because that's where leadership comes in. And people that buy into the mission will buy into the adventure with you. And that's how you create leaders. And I just love that that's what you're doing. And it looks like Jonathan raised his hand, and I think Rachel raised her hand too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. That part really resonated with me, because I think that's what this whole community is about. And that's what I love about these meetups is there are so many people who have gone through that process in so many different ways, right? Because whatever your business might be, whatever kind of person you are, when you were telling me that story, my first thing I started thinking of was my temperament. And I was like, oh, I might not have the best temperament for entrepreneurship or small business. Because if someone had said something that to me, like if I had been really struggling building my business, as every single person building a business does, I think that's part of the, maybe not the definition of building, but it's certain, there's certainly a struggle in it. If someone had said that to me, I would have absolutely lost my mind. So being able to reframe that and to sit there and just say like, no, this is me learning, this is me humbling myself, but ultimately this is me continuing to see my goal. It's so wonderful to hear you say that, because we've heard an example like that from so many different people, and it's manifested in so many different ways. So it is just like this big, everyone's journey is different, but there is a constant that you see with every entrepreneur, and it's grit and it's belief in what you do, and it's determination. And I really appreciate you sharing that vulnerability with us, because it's so clear that you've gone through such a journey that it's really, really encouraging. I think anyone listening to this will feel very encouraged.
Thank you. That's incredibly sweet. And it's armoriness, right? Like sometimes you just, and for me, honestly, you guys, there were twice I tried to get a different job, and like weird things would intervene, and it just like did not work. And I don't know if that's divine intervention or just timing and luck. I feel like right now I really am doing the thing I should be doing, like both for my own personal fulfillment, and it really does make a difference, because, just like people have shown up for me and said, hey, you're banging your head against this brick wall and over here there's a door. And now I'm the one for a lot of people who gets to say, here's where the door is, here's how you get through it. And that makes a difference, right? There are businesses that I'm not in addiction recovery, but I work with a company that is, or the treatment courts I've worked with, or manufacturing, or, it's jobs and diapers and food on the table in all parts of the United States. That's a big deal to support business owners who create those jobs. And so I feel like I landed in the right place. I don't know if that's destiny or stubbornness or great timing or luck, but you do have to be willing to fight for it. That's for sure. All of the above.
God, I have so many things to say to you, Alecia. First of all, it was really interesting when you were talking about the guy you ran into in the grocery store. This is way back in my career, I used to manage a retail store. And I used to tell, and it was very small, and I used to tell employees, don't assume based on how somebody looks coming through the door what their story is.
Yeah.
And a good example was we had this French baker in the neighborhood who was talk about ornery. And he would come in and he would kind of hassle this one employee who didn't handle it well, right? And so long story short, she was making a lot of assumption about who he was as a person, just based on like some interactions. And then as I got to know him better, I just found that was part of his personality and how to work around with him, just based on the fact that, who he was and what he was about. And he became like my top customer. And then I had to talk to my employees about, this is how you work with this guy so that he keeps coming back. So that's one thing. The other thing was, God, huge kudos to you for knocking on doors when you were 19. I did one of my college jobs and, summer jobs was going and recovering fees from a newspaper of people who owed fees and knocking on doors. I've had some bad jobs in my past. That was, I think, my worst job ever. I hated it. So, it takes a lot of guts to go and like do stuff like that. And in sales in particular, and 30,000 cold calls by the time you're 30, I can't even imagine.
It's too many. And you know what? Oh, yeah.
I've done sales and it's hard. doing cold
Yeah.
calling and things like that. So your story is amazing. And I just love your perspective on life in general. And also, you know, the whole that you were poor. I appreciate you really sharing that, because I think that that's an important component that people just think, oh, you've got your own business. That's so exciting. You know, must be so glamorous. And it's hard, you know, it's hard. So thanks for your honesty.
Oh, thank you. You're super sweet. And you get it, right? Like, it does take something to look at people as they are and then be willing to, I mean, I just had another consultant call me this morning to brainstorm about a client who's just fighting her, and really, like, she thinks their deal is about to fall apart. And we talked for a while, and I said, do you feel like with most of your people, you give them these instructions and they take it and it's pretty easy for them? And she's like, oh yeah, for sure. And I said, and do you feel like he's just really struggling with even the simplest things? She's like, yeah, definitely. I said, honestly, I just think you're trying to get him to be somebody that he's not able to be. And now he's really embarrassed, right? This is somebody who's built a $15 million business. He won, but he's probably his whole life been told that he's not doing it the right way, right? Your desk isn't clean enough. You're not organized enough. You don't do this, this, and this the right way. And I, maybe in part, just out of my own orneriness, I just really feel like people should have a fighting chance to win as them. So I love that you were training your staff. Like, let's actually meet our customers where they are, both because it's really good for business, because if you can figure out how to do that, they will come back to you and be loyal. Because if somebody's tough, they're probably tough everywhere they go and nobody really gets them, right? But also, like, isn't that the best thing you can do for other people, is actually just get them where they are and see them in that and let them win as them, right? And, you know, not everybody's your cup of tea, that's fine. But yeah, those of us who have door-to-door background, holy cow, that's a whole thing. You learn a lot about people.
Yep.
I'll get you one of the badges. They say I work hard.
You know how to roll with the punches too. And I appreciate those comments so far. Patty's got her hand up. But one of the things I want to mention is, yeah, we can't fit everybody in a box. Sometimes they're shaped like a star. We got to let them shine, right? Don't shove them in the dark. So Patty.
I really love that Alecia shared that story too, because I think a lot of times we as entrepreneurs get caught up in perception, right? We really feel like people need to have this perception of who we are. And then the thing is, sometimes part of the reason they don't hire us is because they have had this really tough life and they're thinking, oh yeah, it's really easy for you because you've had this really perfect life and everything's just lined up perfectly for you, because that's what people share, because they don't want to tell about all the other ugly stuff. And I remember when I had worked my way up when I was in the mortgage industry until I owned the company, and I had a pivotal moment that changed my life, because, you know, I'd been a single mom. I'd worked 2 jobs. I mean, I remember my mom helping me and feeding my kids macaroni and cheese with cut up hot dogs. I mean, I remember what those days were like. But then I got married again, and all of a sudden life was great, you know, and, you know, my husband loved to buy me jewelry and all this stuff. And I was in this place where I was talking to this couple about the best kind of loan for them to get that starter home. And she looked at me and she said, how can somebody like you that has all those diamonds understand my story? I still get choked up thinking about it. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And that day I went home, I took off all that jewelry, and I only wear my wedding ring and another ring except on my own time. Never to work again did I do that, because I never wanted anyone to feel like that I couldn't help them or serve them because of this perception of what they thought. So I think it's important to share the bad things and the good things and the whole journey along the way.
Patty Farmer, it's really easy to love you. Like, for those of you who don't know Patty Farmer, you really should. Yeah, it's you know, and I think there is an element of our culture where people have started sort of you know, it's tragedy drama, right? Or tragedy, like, I'm putting all my tragedy up so I can get attention or whatever. And that's different, right? I think to be able to just willingly say, I've got some hard stuff, here's what it looks like, I don't have it figured out, as opposed to trying to sort of push that into people's faces. You know, and I know for me, part of it was an ego thing. Like, I was like, I'm a business consultant. How can I possibly tell people I don't have business figured out? right? And I was really adept at the things I was adept at, always have been, keep getting better. But there were things I don't understand. There were things I didn't know. There were, things that I wasn't good at the time. And so, and still are, really. There's a whole list. We got a whole big list. But yeah, I think the world gets a lot better, especially if you can find communities like this where there is space to, really, you guys, maybe 5 years ago, I don't think I would have been able to do this from my car. I don't even know if the technology would have let me, right? But like, just to be that straight about, yeah, I was in Nashville last night. There are spring storms. Like, there's been stuff, some things got double booked, like, leaving on a fun trip this weekend. Like, there are elements of life that just have to be managed. But I'm going to bring my full force to the conversation. You need to be around people that are the right people to share those things with too, is a really big component. And sometimes we need to let them know we're the right people by showing them who we actually are, which is really easy to do when you're in good company and people are willing to go to the mat.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And it's like those rugged maniac races, right? Sometimes it's more fun to be there cheering them while they're overcoming the obstacles, as opposed to listening to them having a beer later and chiding you about how great it was and how you should have been there, how you should have seen them. Because then it's, Are you operating as a victim? Are you braggadocious? What is it, right? If we don't have the connection and we don't have the rhythm and we don't feel like a community, we're missing those moments and those experiences. And even if we're not in the race, we see the leaders, we see the people making those differences, and we want to be there to support them and create these visions that really are the way to the world, right? We get into business because we have a why that's stronger than the business itself, stronger than the revenue, stronger than the cold calls and the knocking and the late nights. There's a why that's strong enough to keep us going, and it's up to us to open our perspective and find somebody that aligns with us, somebody that can support us and cheer us along the way. Rachel.
Yeah, your point, Alecia, about kind of bearing it all, about how you're feeling and thinking as a business person in social channels, I think is really risky. And I'll give you an example of something that I experienced recently with a realtor here in my town who did something like that. She got really personal. And honestly, and I knew her before she became a realtor. And honestly, I was kind of like, I don't know, I don't think I'd put my house in her hands after seeing that. And I felt bad for her that she did that. I think if she had approached it in a different way and written it in a different way, she probably would have been more successful. And I also think that there's a lot of people, your point about putting out what I consider really negative energy and for attention, and just how that can absolutely backfire on you. But on the flip side, there isn't enough honest conversation about how are you feeling. And I will put myself out there of an example, how many years ago, 7, 8 years ago for myself, where I was unemployed and I was really struggling. And I didn't reach out to a bunch of people that I could have to talk to them about it because I felt embarrassed about it. And, looking back on it now, I know that I should have, and I actually probably should have eventually written my story to talk about what I went through, because I think a lot of people go through moments like that in their lives, and others, you don't talk about it. Right. So, but my thing in life is always, it's all in your approach. So if you
Amen to that.
Yeah, if you approach things in a, honest, straightforward, positive way, then I think you can make a lot of headway. If you go down that negative path, then it just keeps spiraling, and then you attract other really negative people into your life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that, Rachel. And I think it too is about, it's about professional discretion, right? Like, the feeling of connectedness doesn't come because I told you all the details of something. You can show up and somebody says, "How you doing?" You say, "Honestly, it's been a little tough at my house lately. Been kind of tough, but we're pulling through, and could use prayers or good energy or whatever you send our way." We definitely appreciate that, right? Like, you can let somebody in without giving them the laundry list. And I always think it's useful to ask, what is the purpose of me sharing this information? And there was a group I worked with and we called it a committed conversation. So I might call up Rachel and say, can I have a committed conversation with you? I have an outcome that I'm looking for. Or back when I sold books, we used to call it emotional puking. So, because if you have all that going on, right, there's a lot going on. And so every Sunday you'd get paired up with a manager who would listen to you puke. But we had it was a very elaborate system so that you had a safe container to say all the things that needed to say, whether you had a good week or a bad week, right? Sometimes you had a good week, you didn't want to celebrate because you didn't want to make your roommate feel bad because they had a very bad week. So you had a place where you could emotionally vent all of that stuff. And I think that too is really useful, especially if you're talking to someone, and you're looking for an outcome, right? Like, hey, can you just help me regain perspective about this hard time that I'm going through? Or I could use your professional assistance taking some ground. Or can you help me? I had a friend who is one of the best teachers you'll ever see. The kids in his high school, like he married my best friend, Jennifer, and they follow him around. They stay in touch with him for years. And, we had budget cutbacks in Colorado. He lost his job and he really struggled for quite a long time to find a new one. And he called me and said, can you just help me figure out what I'm doing wrong in these interviews? Right? That's a great way to reach out to somebody so they really know how to help you. And turns out he's not doing anything wrong. Turns out teaching is a hard profession. And he just had gotten his confidence kind of beat down over time, right? And needed a friend to hear it all and help him remember that he's still a great teacher, right? He had a whole folder full of thank you notes from kids. Like, I don't know if you guys know high school kids real well, but a lot of them are not writing thank you notes. And a lot of the kids that wrote notes to him are the kids that really did have a hard time connecting and feeling like somebody got them in the teaching body. So, thankfully he's back teaching at a charter school and kicking butt and everybody's favorite teacher too.
Well, and it's not just high school kids. That's just the easiest group for us to corral in, right? The world is hard. And already we've talked in just this conversation amongst this community. And Rachel, thank you for sharing your example and your past, because everybody comes from different styles and different backgrounds. They have different needs, and your ability to meet them where their needs are offers perspective and challenges you to evolve as a person, and it challenges them to kind of open up their minds. And it's almost the same thing as moving from industry to industry, right? Alecia, you work with people in different industries and they have different needs. They have different perspectives or different approaches to business. We can learn things, and there's curiosity to be found. There's fun to be had if we just open ourselves up and allow ourselves to move in that direction and have more of a committed and connected relationship without all the baggage. And that's why I think what you do with putting processes in, and we haven't talked really on processes yet, really matters, right? Some of us are very abrasive with wanting to challenge ourselves to look at the business structure and what do we need to do? How do we need to get out of our own way? And it's not processes that are taking away your power, it's granting you power. It's not micromanaging, it's allowing you to manage your emotions, manage the ebbs and flows of your business, manage the moments where you're in a car and you're doing an interview because business needs to happen and you're committed to providing clarity for communities, right? You're offering people some exposure that's going to give them more strength moving forward. So I appreciate you for that. Tell us a little bit about how you help people on their processes and what that means to them.
Yeah, thank you for asking the question, because I am kind of a process nerd, which is funny because I am pretty ornery, right? I just actually had a conversation a few days ago with somebody, and this company wants to build a flat organizational structure, right? They're also a little rebellious, right? They like the freedom of it, very egalitarian. And I was talking with them, like, if you're an entrepreneur who likes all those things, we kind of look at structure and we see that chain of command, that org chart that we've all seen a million times, and we've all seen it not go well. So sometimes there's this temptation to start taking structure out, right? Well, we'll get rid of this layer of managers and we won't have so many meetings. We'll get rid of this report, right? Or we just won't create those to begin with. And I think it's really important to understand, you guys, whether you have 15 people working for you or it's just you and the 15 voices inside your head, human beings need structure and process to help us understand the world. And if you don't build one intentionally that serves that purpose, something is going to spring up in its place. Like that, that's not going to be a void that doesn't get filled. So your process, you have one now, whether you know it or not, and whether it's working for you or not, right? Your process might be every time I get a new client, I forget to send out the invoicing and I got to set up all this stuff. And then I end up till 2 o'clock in the morning doing all of these things, or I rebuild it every single time. And I never really sat down and thought about it, right? So, you know, if you start to think about, well, I'm going to have some process, right? And in the case of that company, I just talked to them, you're not going to build a flat organizational structure that is no structure. If you build no structure, you end up with a hidden structure and everything kind of goes Lord of the Flies. So what you want to think about doing is maybe a fluid structure, right? Like, how do you build the systems and processes that will just simplify things? It's kind of like the difference between driving around in a city that you know when you need to go get groceries and driving around in a city that you don't know and we take away your Waze. Right? If you've got to do it all on your own, remember in the old days, we used to have that map. When I sold bookstore to door, all we had was the paper maps. You're like, I don't know where I am. It just takes a lot more time and energy mentally. So part of what I would advise people to do is you really want to think about, what are your high value targets? What's the work that you do all the time, over and over and over? Can you create a special file where you've got a template for those invoices? Even little things that are just really simple, right? Or maybe it's the 2 days before you go do work with clients, you book a couple days in advance so you can do the planning because you like to do that last minute. Some processes are really, really simple. But as soon as you add other people to your organization, you got to get really strategic. Most of us operate in what I would call a chase, nag, and remind culture. Right? Like, think about how you interact with most of the people it's usually you're chasing them down, right? You're sending those polite, not so polite emails. Hey, I just wanted to follow up. Am I ever getting that thing you said you'd send? Right? And so you got to think about how to train them that they're going to report up to you instead of you having to go hunt them down. Like, Adam, if you get done with this early, send it to me. If you think you can't finish it, call me and let me know. And if you're for sure not going to be able to finish it, the minute you know you're going to miss that deadline, you need to get in touch with me and either provide a solution or hand it off to me so that I can. Right? But now I don't have to chase Adam down anymore once we get that kind of a process in place. And Adam doesn't feel micromanaged. We both end up with more freedom, but we also end up with something that works better for both of us. Does that make sense? Does that kind of resonate, you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of times we see processes as being this structural gel we're putting on ourselves, right? We've got to fit between these bars and peek our head out and see what's going on, but go back to your desk, do what you're supposed to do, and don't get up until the work's done. And a lot of times we're missing the point. We're missing the point that, especially as leaders, that process can create simplicity. Simplicity allows your mind to be open to moments that matter. It allows you to have fun in the hard moments, right? And there's power in that. There's power in that. And how fortunate are we that we can balance that, right? If we put in the processes that allow us to be more open and more free to connect, we can experience the business we're building in a more fruitful and fun and curious way. And that goes up through leadership. It comes back down through the people on our team, flat, vertical, strip mall style, whatever style your business is, right? If it works well and you simplify it, you've got those processes, you're accountable to it. And like you said, the world is evolved and changed, and we are so lucky. We don't have maps, we've got GPS. We don't have pay phones, we've got cell phones. We don't have to go and see each other in person across the country to have moments like this that matter. We've got virtual meetups. We've got recorded sessions that people can listen to on their own time. We've got podcasts. There's just so much that allows us to balance our life and balance our vision so that we can have the strength to get through the next day and strength to find the next people that are going to take up the torch and continue to build this amazing vision, these moments that are going to allow other people to experience success and joy and fun and curiosity. So I appreciate you for dialing in on that. And you're right, processes can be a little bit abrasive, but if you work on it together, it's an accountability factor. It's not delegation, it's respect. And respect leads to leadership, leads to fun. Like I said, it's all cyclical.
And you can build cool stuff. Like, that's the other thing about structure that I think we forget, right? You don't have to just copy some rigid thing that you hated from. Not every great organization is run with a rule book this thick, right? But they all have structures. It's just, if you want to go more fluid, you actually have to be more intentional. Like, one of my favorite examples of creative structures, if you look at special forces teams, I was on LinkedIn the other day and I do some volunteering with a site called Veterati, where you can volunteer to mentor a veteran that's transitioning. So now I'm connected with a lot of special forces people. And by the way, that website is amazing. If you care about that issue and you're willing to give back, whatever you have, they're excited and happy to take. And it's a brilliant thing. But somebody posted a picture and he said, "This is my favorite photo from sniper school." And I thought, man, my feed is a lot more interesting with all these special forces guys. That's just a different perspective on what's happening on a Tuesday morning, right? But, you know, in the special forces, you don't just have one leader. You might rotate leaders for each operation, which seems like a very free, very egalitarian, very no structure. But it actually takes a lot of thought and planning to have a team of people that can operate that way. So you really have to train everybody to lead, but you also have to train everybody to follow. You have to think about how and when decisions are going to get made. And you do that really thoughtfully, you get this very fluid system. Or even like one of my other favorite examples is Netflix came up with this. They have a book called No Rules Rules, which many of you have probably read. And they do a thing there about their travel policy, right? Initially, they thought, well, we don't want to manage everybody's expenses. We're just going to tell everybody to use our money like it's your money, right? Like that sounds like a reasonable thing to do. Like spend our money like it's your money. Turns out people are stupid and they're not good with money. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. So once they figured that out, they're like, well, what do we want? We don't want a whole bunch of expense reports. We don't want all of this stuff. What we want is still a lot of freedom, but we need some kind of accountability. So they have a policy now where do what is best for the company, which is a very different mandate. And then each manager has to choose between two different setups for accountability. They can review everybody's stuff and hold them accountable. You just have to be able to answer for whatever you spent. Or they can just pass it all up line, and then there's randomized audits. So you catch people just frequently enough to make sure they stay in line. And, you know, don't forget too, that culture is something that you can create with your structures and processes. You can protect the really good stuff that you have. I had an engineering firm and they do fun. They're engineers who do fun, and they do it better than you or I ever will. And we talked about their core values, and we did some really interesting work, and they said, okay, how do we incorporate this in a real way that's going to feel genuine? So now every quarter they rotate with their core values, an individual prize and a team prize. And one of their values is fun. Like, we believe work is work, but we have a good time while we're doing it. And the team prize, if you win that quarter, is a 3-story trophy with a rubber chicken on top. And it is coveted. They fight over it like cats and dogs. And the individual gets a personalized bobblehead of themselves, which is fantastic, right? And that's structure too. That's process too. So you can use all of this stuff to do really good, really interesting, great things that your people and your customers will love. So, you know, balance or process and structure doesn't all have to be the old boring stuff. It can be the sexy stuff, the stuff that really means something to you, that is exciting and fun and is your creativity and your unique perspective on the world.
I love it. I love that you're out building these leadership teams that are providing more opportunity for something that's beautiful, and it's got culture and it's got opportunity, and it's not corporate, right? And there's nothing wrong with being in that lifestyle, but what I'm saying is it's not one size fits all. It's not putting them in a box. Like we said earlier, let people be the star that's meant to shine in their sky, and those that want to be part of that can join, right? And if not, there's plenty of opportunities. But Alecia, thank you so much for creating leaders in these companies and allowing them to get to that next level. You're helping small business owners that have hit a threshold where they can't do it by themselves anymore. And if you help them, you're helping their community, you're providing new paying jobs, you're providing new leadership roles. Everything that you're doing is so much more powerful than you know. And there's this giant ripple effect that's going to raise up communities. So thank you so much for that. Well, if there's not any more comments or questions or kudos at this point, Alecia, one of the things we like to do is point people to connect with you, right? We want to make sure that we're committed to you, and we want to empower the community to take those next steps. So where can we send people to connect with you that is going to be the best win-win for everybody?
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Well, at Maverick and Company, and that's all spelled out, .com, we have some really great resources under the free resources page. Literally, you don't even have to put in your email address, and you can download all kinds of videos and look at all kinds of stuff. And we try to keep putting new things up there that are useful to just help you on your journey, because not everybody should work with me, right? But we have some really cool things. And then like a lot of you, I love to be connected on LinkedIn. I think that's a great place to get exposed to new content and new ideas. So I definitely post on there regularly and would love to bump into you and see the things that you're working on and interested in.
Love it. I love it. You're leading with contribution even on your site. That's amazing.
I already
So
sent
great
you
to
a
meet
LinkedIn
you.
connection invite.
She's on it. She's like, I got this.
Yeah, I was so impressed with you. I think you're so nice.
Oh.
You speak so well. I'm really thankful that you gave us this time.
Oh, thank you. That's so incredibly kind.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for those comments. And Elena, thank you. I appreciate all of your time, Alecia. I know that it is valuable and it is hi noodles.
I had to. I
Wait,
do
where's
apologize.
Noodle? Oh, I'm so happy right now. Hi,
I
Noodle.
couldn't not. I do apologize for being cameras off this meeting, but I really enjoyed it and I needed to I know you needed to get your fix.
I did. I'm
Oh.
so happy.
Oh, Noodles is so cute.
He's so sweet. He's so sweet. He had
Oh.
all of his eyes cleaned, both of his eyes cleaned this morning.
Oh my God, I
Oh,
love this so
yeah.
much.
And there you go, right there. Business is fun. We're having a conversation and noodles
There it
came to
is.
visit. I love it. I love it.
I love it. Noodle and me.
Business professionals, just two business professionals.
Dude, I have a feeling Pete Mitchell is going to send him something fun in the mail.
Let's go. Let's
Oh,
go.
networking.
I'll put it among the boxes.
That's so
We
cute.
do want to hear from Pete Mitchell. Yes, we do.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you, Jonathan.
Of course. He's a sweet
So
man.
fun.
Love it. Well, Alecia, thank you so much. And to everybody else that was here today, thank you so much. Definitely let's connect. Let's continue the conversation. Good luck on your trip. Enjoy it. I want to hear all about it when you guys get back. And in the meantime, everybody have a great weekend.